America is right in the middle of the worst drug epidemic in its history. Hundreds of thousands of our fellow citizens have died so far. The epidemic is driven, as you know, by highly addictive opioid painkillers made and sold by pharmaceutical companies and used for legitimate purposes, treating cancer, for example. But these companies, despite some responsibility for this epidemic, have avoided all responsibility so far. And it's not because they're not guilty. There's growing evidence that the drug companies and pharmacies directly fueled addiction by flooding towns with massive amounts of pain pills. How many? Well, Paul Farrell is an attorney. He represents several communities now suing pharmaceutical companies, and he joins us tonight for some perspective on this. Paul, thanks a lot for coming on. Give us just that, some perspective. When we read that this or that drug company, Purdue Pharma, for example, flooded a community with opioid tablets, what does that mean?
Well, I think it started in 2016 when the Charleston Gazette, a local newspaper, reported that 780 million opium pills were distributed in West Virginia during an 8-year window. And we only have 1.8 million residents in our state. So that data comes from a database held by the DEA. And through this national litigation, we got access to the national data. And across the country, during this 8-year window, 76 billion pills of opium were distributed.
Clearly, the federal government was tracking this. I mean, you have the numbers. The drug companies themselves knew it was going on. I'm sure state law enforcement had some idea. Why did nobody say anything about this?
Well, it's a difficult question that Congress has been asking. And from what we understand, it's sort of like the SEC with Wall Street. Millions and millions of transactions happen every single day on Wall Street. And the SEC, they're not the clearinghouse. Just because the transaction goes through doesn't make it lawful. But what the SEC can do is they can go backwards in time and identify a particular actor or a particular series of transactions and recreate exactly what happened. The same thing applies with the DEA's database. There's literally hundreds of millions of transactions. There's no feasible way for the DEA to monitor and clear them as they go through. But what they are able to do is go backwards in time. What we've done in this litigation is we've been able to get access to the entire database, go back in time, and identify which communities were flooded.
Well, we know a lot of those were in Ohio and West Virginia, as you said. If you're a drug company and you're sending millions and millions and millions of opioid tablets to a single small county in West Virginia, say, you have to know what's going on, don't you?
You would think so, but what I want to make clear is that this wasn't an isolated event. This happened all over the country. Like, for instance, I looked up, you went to Trinity College in Hartford, Connecticut.
Yes. Right.
192 million pills were sold in Hartford, Connecticut during an 8-year window. There's a pharmacy a half mile from Trinity College that sold 350,000 pills of opium in 1 year. So what my hope is this is a great awakening. Every community in the country needs to understand this didn't happen in someone else's backyard. This happened in your backyard.
And so the point is, it's the opposite of the lie that we're told by the libertarians, which is this is a demand problem. We have a drug epidemic because Americans want drugs. What you're telling us is that when you flood a community with drugs, a lot of people become addicted to drugs.
It's shocking, right? But let's make clear what we're flooding with. It's opium. It's been around since the Byzantine era. Governments have been toppled over it. The Chinese had a war with it. It's opium. And we sold 76 billion pills of pharmaceutical-grade opium in America. And so it's not shocking that what we're seeing is the fruits of laying all of these seeds across America. It's abuse, addiction, morbidity, mortality, and it's a tsunami, and we haven't seen the end of it.
Yeah, and our politicians blame the population for it, you'll notice. Thanks, Mr. Farrell. Thanks very much for coming on tonight, and Godspeed.
No problem.